going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing you a card discussion on Summon Sorceress. Now this is really exciting because Summon Sorceress is probably one of the most highly anticipated Link monsters that the OCG has had available for quite some time, and we didn't know exactly when we were going to be receiving this card here in the TCG. Summon Sorceress is going to be coming in as a Shonen Jump promo, and that's really cool, but it's also really bad at the same time because it means it's only going to be available for North American regions like US and Canada, and other regions like Europe, Mexico, and basically anywhere else that isn't in North America isn't going to have access to this card for several months after its initial release here in the TCG. And that's really bad because I feel that with cards like Summon Sorceress and with stuff like Link Kuriboh, that these are cards that are format defining and warping cards that if they're not present in a current meta, it actually can shift the meta and shift the format drastically between varying regions of the TCG, and I really don't like that. I feel we should all have access to the same card pool, have the same format, at least, you know, in our own realm of the TCG as a whole, just so everyone is on an equal playing field. But I guess that's a video for a different day. Today we're going to be focusing solely on Summon Sorceress. So for those of you guys who don't know, Summon Sorceress is a Link 3 Dark Spellcaster type monster with 2400 attack and an effect that reads as follows. It requires 2+ monsters with the same type, except tokens. If this card is Link summoned, you can special summon one monster from your hand in defense position to your opponent's zone this card points to. You can target one face-up monster this card points to, special summon one monster from your deck with the same type as that monster to a zone this card points to, but negate its effects. You can only use this effect of Summon Sorceress once per turn. So, Summon Sorceress has a nice, interesting combination of effects. The first effect is kind of unlike anything we've really ever seen in an effect before, and then the second effect is one of the craziest effects ever, and we're going to go ahead and dissect and pretty much get into these one by one. The first thing I want to start with, though, is the summoning conditions. 2+ monsters with the same type, except tokens. Now, there is a way to bypass this with tokens, so let's take Scapegoat for instance. Well, we can't use the tokens themselves, however, we can climb up the Link ladder and use the tokens to make a Link Spider and a Proxy Dragon, and guess what? We now have a Link 2 Cyberse and a Link 1 Cyberse, and now we can make Summon Sorceress. So, even though it has a stipulation you can't use tokens, there are definitely ways to bypass that very easily for only committing the minimal amount of resources to your extra deck. And I think if you're playing Scapegoat, you're already playing these cards anyway, so that's really not too big of a deal. Now, Summon Sorceress's first effect is not one that you're probably going to be using too often. I mean, there are instances where it might be useful because maybe you don't have the ability to get a monster onto the board that it's pointing to on your side, and maybe you really want that special summon. So if you have to, you can give your opponent a monster to their zone, and that means you can use Summon Sorceress's second effect to special summon out a monster of the same type. However, you're not going to want to use this too often because you are giving your opponent a resource, and I guess while it kind of plays around evenly matched, at the same time, you're just not wanting to give them a monster in general. Now, to kind of mitigate that, I guess you can give them a monster that's going to have a graveyard trigger-like effect, so maybe something like an ABC piece, for instance, so that way if you have a way to destroy it during the duration of your turn, you can use and trigger that effect and get some value out of it later on. And we're going to come back to ABC in a little bit, but this is kind of one of the effects that you might seldom use every once in a while, but it's not the primary focus of Summon Sorceress. The main primary focus of this card is the second effect, because this card is basically a lone Fire Blossom for any fucking monster in your deck with no stipulations, no conditions other than the fact it has to be the same type. There's no level restriction, there's no attack restriction. I guess the monster has its effect negated, but I mean, frankly, who cares? Because when we get into some of the things you can do with this card, you're going to realize that that actually doesn't matter in the slightest. Now, the thing is, starting off with, let's look at some of the best decks of the format and see how this card can apply. So let's start off with Pendulum Magician. Now, Pendulum Magician is a very mono-type based deck, since the deck is primarily comprised of spellcasters. Now, what's really cool about this is that if you get Summon Sorceress onto the board, which should be rather easily since you have access to the Pendulum summoning mechanic as a whole, you could, if you wanted to, give your opponent something like a Black Fang Magician, because if you have a way to remove it, either through battle or through card effect, you're gonna trigger the Black Fang Magician when it goes back to the extra deck, and you're gonna get to special summon something out of your graveyard, giving yourself a little bit of a combo extender or a little bit of extra value by giving your opponent opponent that Black Fang Magician to begin with, but you're also getting the special summon effect from the Summon Sorceress as well, meaning you can tutor out any other spellcaster monster in your deck, and that's really cool because that means then you have access to maybe a rank 4 play, or maybe summoning something like Starving Venom, or really just using it for any sort of material for anything that you can tutor out of your extra deck, just giving you an extended line of play compared to cards that wouldn't be able to do that in the past. And I think that's really cool, and especially with cards like Harmonizing Magician and things like that, which are able to just accrue you more resources, making it even easier to go into something like this card. I think that's very beneficial, and it's something that you might want to use depending on the circumstances. Now, another deck that could gain some benefit out of this that's been seeing a lot of play lately is Trickstar. Now, Trickstar is a deck that does take advantage of Scapegoat as one of its win conditions, so you can bring out Summon Sorceress through the aforementioned method, and now you're going to be in a really cool position, because if you have access to any Trickstar monster that's pointing to the Summon Sorceress, maybe utilizing something like Trickstar Reincarnation or something like that, what you can do is, say for instance you have a Licorice on the field. You can target the Licorice, summon out a Candina, then if you have another Licorice in hand, bounce Candina back to your hand, special summon the Licorice, normal summon the Candina you just special summoned from your deck. You can use that Candina to add something like Lilybell, special summon Lilybell, and you now have a ton of damage on board that you're probably just going to be able to snowball and win the game outright from there. You can see how Summon Sorceress really can just snowball advantage rather quickly, and that's what makes this card so cool. That's where we get into a deck like ABC, and ABC is one of the decks that really takes advantage of Summon Sorceress rather well, because it's a deck that has a lot of graveyard triggers, meaning by using the ABC pieces to summon the Summon Sorceress in the first place, you're gonna get a ton of added value off of that. So say for instance you summon the Summon Sorceress and you use something like C Crush Wyvern for instance. Well, what you can do is, since C will trigger and special summon another piece, let's say you summon B, now you can use Summon Sorceress, target the B, and then you can special summon out the A from your deck, and now you have all three pieces to assemble an ABC Dragon Buster, and not to mention that if you link those away, those are going to get their effects as well, meaning B is going to trigger a search. You might not want to trigger A because you want to have those pieces in the graveyard, but if you have additional pieces, you're going to be able to add one of those back so that when you summon your Dragon Buster, you're going to have a card that you can pitch for free to use Dragon Buster's effect. And that's where this card can just start to snowball. Summon Sorceress makes it so that you can easily bring out multiple Dragon Busters, because by basically lone fire tutoring any piece in your deck, it makes it so much easier to just get multiple pieces on the field or in the graveyard, and that's what makes this card so powerful. If I told you that there was a Lone Fire Blossom that was basically generic for any deck, would you play it? Hell yeah I would, and that's basically what Summon Sorceress is. What I like about Summon Sorceress though is the fact that you don't have to play it in decks that are comprised solely of singular type based decks. Take for instance something like Burning Abyss or even PK Fire. Let's start with the Burning Abyss example. If you have Burning Abyss and let's say you summon Sorceress through something like Libic, well, Libic's effect will trigger, special summon a Burning Abyss monster, and its effect will be negated, so it won't be destroyed because it's on the field with Summon Sorceress. Now you can use Summon Sorceress, target the monster summoned by Libic, summon another Burning Abyss monster from your deck, which also will have its effects negated thanks to Summon Sorceress's effect, and now you can go into a Dante or any rank 3 of your choosing that was basically made for free, because all of the Burning Abyss monsters have these grave triggers that help you play and recruit your advantage that you use to summon the Summon Sorceress, and then you get to extend those plays thanks to the Summon Sorceress as a whole. What's also really cool about this variant of a deck is that Dante is in fact a warrior, so if you have Summon Sorceress pointing towards a Dante, you can use the effect and special summon a Phantom Knight, since the Phantom Knights also happen to be warrior type, and basically get the added value off of that. And then if you have something like Silent Boot, you're able to special summon it, go into yet another Dante or another rank 3 of your choice, and I think that's what's so cool about this card. The last thing I wanted to discuss is something like Mekk-Knight Invoked. Again, another deck very similarly to Trickstar that takes advantage of Scapegoat. Now, with Scapegoat and with, let's say, just something like a Purple Nightfall, you can actually do a shit ton of damage with this card. So, let's say you use your Scapegoat, you make your Summon Sorceress. Then, you summon your Purple Nightfall, banish it, and add Blue Sky. You use Blue Sky to add Indigo Eclipse to your hand, then you special summon the Indigo Eclipse into another column column that you're able to special summon it. Thanks to Indigo Eclipse's effect, you can move it to a zone that Summon Sorceress is pointing towards, use the Summon Sorceress, target Indigo Eclipse, and summon any other Mekk-Knight from your deck because they all share the psychic typing, and that means you can get in for like over 9,000 points of damage as a whole just from Scapegoat and one lone card. I think that is phenomenal that you can get in so much damage with such a low dedication of resources that it really just adds to the boon that Summon Sorceress can add to any deck. Now obviously this card does have its downsides because it's not meant for every deck, but the thing is this card is going to get insane once Crystron Needle Fiber is released. Once we get Crystron Needle Fiber, you're able to make Summon Sorceress with just lone one card combos. Armageddon Knight, for instance, you can use Armageddon Knight, send Destrudo, make Crystron Needle Fiber, and then you're able to special summon something like Mecha Phantom Beast Orion. Oh look, these two cards happen to be the same type, and they can make a Link 3. So you can make Summon Sorceress, Orion's gonna special summon a token, and you basically did that all off of one card just by using your normal summon. That means you still have 4 other cards in your hand if you're going first, and you're able to just combo off with whatever your deck is capable of doing from there. That's where this card is gonna start to get insane. I expect to see some decks playing Summon Sorceress on release. Obviously it's not going to be played in every deck, but I think that once people start to experiment with this card and really understand how it works and how it can just snowball in terms of advantage, I think people are going to really warm up to this card and really enjoy what the card has to offer as a whole. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Summon Sorceress. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.